Are we on, Veronica? Hi, everyone. My name's Jerry Gagne, and welcome to the Foys on Facebook show. Have to apologize. We're about 5 or 6 minutes late. We had everything all set up, and when we turned it on, turned out for some reason it wasn't clear. I was in the shadow, so in the last 5 minutes we've turned everything around in a completely different direction. I am by myself today. As you know, my co-host is Gina, my daughter, Gina Gagne, and she's on vacation. In fact, when I left my house, she was in my pool enjoying herself. So yesterday I scheduled Gramus, who's been on our show before, as a co-host, and said he'd do his very best to make it, but he called just before the show. And I can't blame him. He works until 2 o'clock in the city of Pittsburgh, which is almost an hour's drive for him, so he just couldn't do it. So you're stuck with me. As you know, the Foys on Facebook has been, we're getting to be an old show. How many weeks are we on now, do you know? 15? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is somewhere around our 15th show. If this is the first time you've watched it, you'll realize that it's relaxed, comfortable, easygoing. We don't panic, and I hope informational for you. It certainly is non-professional, just by the fact that we're 5 minutes late. What you're looking at behind me are some shelves. We're doing the show from the warehouse, and the next time we do it, we'll be better prepared. And of course, part of the blame is on me because I, as usual, don't show up until about 2:30 for a show that starts at 3 o'clock. So if I'd have been here at 2 o'clock, we wouldn't have had the problem. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today. I've got some questions that have been emailed to me, and we'll be covering those. I've got 2 or 3 pages of notes. We're going to have an auction on some great pigeons. In fact, we're going to start the show off with the auction so I can tell you a little bit about them. We're going to talk about some utility kings. We're also going to be covering something like sinusitis. Another gentleman called me just before I left the house, I think it was, about pigeon pox, so we'll be talking about that. But the pigeon pox and the sinusitis are questions asked to me on my own home phone. Or they email me. I encourage you, if you have a question, all you have to do is get on Facebook, and what do you call it? Just send it through Facebook, Veronica. Veronica's on my left. She does all the technical work in order to put this on the air, and believe me, without her, we wouldn't have a show. So we're going to do an auction, and to explain the auction, it was kind of our idea. We started, I think this is a third auction, and it's an auction of birds that are donated. And the way it works basically is we start the auction on a Monday, so this one started last Monday, and it ends at 3:45 today. So right off the bat, I'll tell you where we stand, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the birds. We're auctioning off today 2 pair of racing homers and 1 pair of utility kings. The utility kings are secondary. I'm hoping to help somebody who raises utility kings, and I told him I'd show them because I do get calls occasionally, people looking for them. So if you need them, you're going to be able to buy them at a reasonable price, I'm sure. Now, the pair that I have to show you, a pair of racing homers, are really, really special. I've talked to you before. In fact, we've had bids. I've had phone calls about them. I've got the pedigrees here. Pedigree goes with these birds. These birds are down from Belgian birds. Great-grandparents were from Belgium, and their great-grandparents go back, I'm looking at the years, 77, 93, 87. So these birds were brought in well over 10 years ago, and the original owner was Bob King. Bob King is non-parallel loft. You've all heard about him. Some of the best pigeons in the United States. Gentleman called me a while back, asked me if I had any use for him because he had to cut way back on his stock, and he'd rather offer them to me instead of just giving them to somebody local. He thought maybe I could find something to do with them, and so we have the auction. And the auction itself, real quick, if you're bidding or have watched the show, I'll go a little bit more, but I want to tell you. Pair number 1, which is what I'm going to show you today, has already reached $230 in bidding. That's $230 for the pair. Now that $230, whoever buys them will have to email us or call us with their credit card information, or if you're going to send a check, you can do that. But we have to hear from you no later than Monday, this coming Monday at 5 o'clock. We've extended it a little bit, and that's a little bit different. The reason we did that, the last auction we had, the gentleman bought the first pair, called us, gave us his credit card number, and then changed his mind. The other 2 pair of Indian fantails are gone. So we're going to give you a little bit longer to get your credit card information for the birds themselves. So the other thing, first let me tell you about the birds. This is way back now to the great grandparents, and they're mostly let's see. Well, I'll tell you the strains because it's a mixed strain. Way back when, let's see, it's called Steamwalker, famous 90 Catrice. The bloodline has various bloodlines shipped to the United States, and the band number that one doesn't really, you don't need that, but it was born in '82. One of the other birds is from King Felix. Really tough bird through the 500-mile races, down from Doctor of the famous Witug. The next bird is, let's see, the bird was Belgium, has a Belgian bird, down from King Felix again. Phenomenal breeder, because these birds have been in the country for a good while. Some of them are gone. I'm sure many of them are gone, but they were phenomenal breeders. Let's see. The next one down is down from King. Let's see. This one is down from Steamwalker, phenomenal breeder of champions. The sire brought in over 50 long-distance wins. The next one, this is all the great-grandparents now, and I'm sorry if I have to read, so I'm not looking at you, but you understand. I'm no professional. I'm not like those guys on TV, the news people that can read it as it comes up on the screen. The next great-grandparents was down from this is in Belgium now, or German, Stamweeker, born at '87, from also including Dr. President, if you've heard of that strain. The next one is famous down from King Felix, won many first prizes, won 20 of them in long races. And the next one is, once again, down from King Felix. His protege how do you say that word? Do you know? Progeny? Protege? Something like that. You know, from way back when. Protege winning worldwide. And he comes on the other side from Dr. President. Then we're going to go to the grandparents. That grandparents was down from, Super Skunug, a Catrice, one of the finest breeders of long-distance birds in the country. Sire has brought in champions from 300 to 700 miles. The next one down from that pair, down from King Felix, and also world-famous, Felix Bloodlines, a direct doctor of King Felix, breeder of champions. And next one, the brother and sister are winning. One brother won the 500. A lot of long-distance breeding behind these birds, and it's something I get a lot. People get a lot of questions about, wanting to know if I have long-distance breeders. So this one has 7 winners behind it at the 500 mile. And down from that, let's see, Doctor of the famous King Felix. So you can see King Felix is in really a lot of this. Then the parents of one of these birds, and it's number, if you want it'll be pair number 1, but its band is 68. So the parents was born in '68. I'm sorry, the band number 68, and the bird was born in '03. Sure hope I'm not confusing you. I'm doing my very best. Let's see, let's see. Absolutely brilliant. Is down from the world famous breeder, Blue Quaker, breeder of champions. And then the other one is a phenomenal hen, is a breeder of many winners, won twice at 200-mile Triple Crown Classic. And her progeny, I can't say that word. Protege, that's a good one, it's winning. So the bird that's up for bid today is Super Stock. And let's see. The bird is won over $8,000. That bird. Now, let's talk about the cockbird. That is the cockbird, I'm sorry. And I know I'm confused, but I'm reading two different pedigrees. This one, I'm going to just go quick. What the background is, when we get way back to the grandparents, James Bond is behind it. Miss Mattens, M-A-T-T-E-N, she sold for $10,500. $10,500 she sold for. Then down from the great-grandparents also, down from Doctor. It's an incredible bird, according to the pedigree. Sire to several champions. And then the next one in the great-grandparents, sire to winners from Holland. Incredible bird, Zoom World Red October, that's all behind it. And the next one down, Super Breeder from Zoom. Winner, let's see, dam is, Bloodbred is 100%. The first pair were winners from it. And then the last one is El Dorado. Tell you some information on it. America's Ace Pigeon in 1992. Overall Ace Pigeon. So much good stuff behind this bird. The grandparents are King Bond, Golden Popeye, King's Crown. One bird, the dam from this bird, won $42,000. Wow. The next one is champion of King's Crown, first equal in the Triple Crown, winning $24,000. Altogether $30,000. The next one down is from King's Crown. Let's see, tied at the drop at 100, 200, 300. Only 7 birds in 20 years to do it. And I'm going to skip that one. Absolutely, next one, this is the parents now. Absolutely phenomenal Voyager. Breeders flew and won at 100, 200, and 300. Thousands of Triple Crown Classics, incredible pigeon, sold for $3,000. Then another one, the next one down, sold for $42,000. I'm skipping over there's so much stuff in here. Then there's overall Ace Pigeon again, and the one 2,600, and it was in the 600 and the 500. That's just pair one. I urge you to Facebook your bids. We're starting the bidding at $230 for that pair. Anything over 230 will be next in line, but if we don't get any bids, the bird will sell for $230. Now, I didn't, would you show them that pair of birds while it's on their mind, please, Veronica? And while Veronica's setting up, I'll go off camera, but I didn't bring the other pair. It was a misunderstanding. I thought I was only going to do one pair, but it turns out we were supposed to do 2 pair, so I didn't bring the other pair. But if you can see those birds, okay. Hold on just a second. It's not working. It will. Okay. I wish we had better light, but at least you know they're alive. There's the blue check is the cock, the blue bar is the hen. Beautiful, beautiful birds. I handle them and they're like silk. If you're interested, any bid over 230, birds could be yours. Now, the next pair, I'm going to go a lot quicker on this. And just so you know, pair number 2, let's see, is the first bird, which is the hen, is a 2014 bird, so she's only 4 years old going into this year, down from, let's see, 71, and let me check something for you. I want to make sure I'm right. Yep. Okay. The bird is a ARPU 67741. 67741. Okay. What we've got in this breed, or in these strains, James Bond is behind it. Secret Dream, King's Crown, Super Stock bird. The other bird, let me see some information that might interest you. King Felix is behind it. Super Catrice is behind it. Miss Verbeek is behind it. Phenomenon is behind it. It's bred winners already. It has bred 32. It won in the Triple Crown. It won $8,000 when there were 2 birds on the drop. The other one, great breeder. Miss Madden's behind it. As I told you, she won $10,500. Adirondack Secretariat is behind it. I've heard of that particular bird. There's a overall ace pigeon behind it, Secretariat. Famous King's Crown. I can go on and on. Just a super pair of pigeons. It's pair number 2. The first one was pair number 1 and pair number 2. Now pair number 2, we have an opening bid. Let me see. Tell me again. 300 and what? Okay, we have a bid of $300 for pair number 2. The way you do it, go to Facebook, send in your bid, and if your bid is higher than $230 for the first pair or $300 for the second pair, then they could be yours. Once again, it's Foys on Facebook. If you have a question on your bird's health, a question on the pigeon loft information, anything like that, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. I have give you an idea of a call I got this morning, and as you know, I get lots of calls and emails. Gentleman asked, he says, "Hey Jerry, I bought one of your traps, and it just seems no matter what I do, the bird seems to be escaping from the inside and getting away. And I don't know what the heck I'm doing wrong. Maybe it's a defective trap, or maybe I've set it up wrong." I've heard the question so many times over the many years we've been in business, and I thought I knew the answer right away, and I asked them the question. I said, if you're standing inside your loft and you're looking outside through the trap, is there a landing board or a piece of wood or a 2x4 on the inside where the birds fly up, stand there, and go out? And he said, "How did you know?" I said, "Well, that's your problem right there. When you have a trap like the traps that we sell, or anybody's trap that has bobs, you can't have a landing area on the inside, because what happens is the bird lands on that, and now he's got all day to figure out how to push those bobs away. Take that landing board or piece of 2x4 that you have on the inside, just take it out of there, and you'll never have the problem again. Because when the birds are flying and they want to go up, but the trap is shut, they're against the bobs. They can't get any foothold. They can't get out. So that was a simple question, but it's amazing how many times I've been asked that particular question. Another question I got today, and then once again I invite you to email your calls or email your questions through. I said it wrong, didn't I? But you guys probably know more about Facebook than I do. But you have to send your questions in through Facebook. Now, here's a gentleman who called me. Emailed me here. I just got this one in. He says, "Good morning," and the guy's name is, let me see if he signed it. Jason. Jason sent this in, and he says, "Good morning, Jerry. I tried what you said. I had talked to him earlier. And all day yesterday the bird seemed to be better. However, this afternoon when I went out to feed everyone, I could hear this bird breathing even before I entered the loft. He's now wheezing pretty loud. He sounds like he's been a heavy smoker for many years. I separated them and brought them into the house. I wormed them today and with coccyworm, which means he actually wormed them, and then he also treated them for coccidiosis. But when most of you know, if you have a heavy breathing or something like that, it's almost always respiratory. Coccidiosis and worms have absolutely nothing to do with respiratory, so he used that and it didn't work, and certainly not surprising that it didn't work. He also tried 5-in-1. Well, 5-in-1 is canker, coccidiosis. It's got a probiotic in it. It's for paratyphoid. None of the respiratory medicine is in that, so it didn't work. So I got to talking to him a little bit, and I asked him how many birds he had, and he said about 20. So I told him that he would be best to treat them in the drinking water with Spiridox. Spiridox is a combination of spiromycin and doxycycline. It's a really great product for many, many respiratory issues. But respiratory is not one disease. Respiratory, as I've said this many times on this show now, it's a family or an accumulation of different diseases, much like a Crohn's disease in humans. Well, Crohn's disease is a family of diseases. The reason I know about that is I have it. I have what's called ulcerative colitis, but that's just one of them. You can have just plain Crohn's disease, which is completely different. So respiratory is a family of diseases, and you're best to do a little bit of surveying or a little bit of studying, read my catalog, go to some books if you can, or call me. And if I'm not home, when I get home, I'll call you, and we'll go over it. And the first thing, of course, I ask is what are the symptoms. So my suggestion in this particular case with the bird coughing and breathing very raggedly, it would be Spiridox. Now, he said it was the only bird that had it, and I suggested the Spiridox powder so that it's probably going to go from bird to bird, so I suggested he treat everything. But might be a good idea also to segregate that bird, get it out of the loft, don't put it back in the loft, which he did. He took it inside and brought it back in. Take it out until it either dies or it's cured, and you might be better off with that individual bird, even though you're treating your flock, take them out of there, treat them with the Spiridox tablets or even Tony Strasser tablets. That's direct treatment, because some of these birds when they're sick, they don't drink as much water as they might, and with tablets, you know they're getting it. I always tell, they're getting the proper medication. I always tell people, if you're going to use a tablet, break it in half or cut it in half. Give them half in the morning, half in the evening, because if you give the whole tablet, it only going to work for a number of 8 or 9 hours, then doesn't get another pill until the next day. So you're better off half in the morning, half in the evening. Oh, I catch my breath. Oh, by the way, this is not Jack Daniels. This is Dr. Pepper. All right, another question. A guy talked to me today about his loft, and he was trying to decide what to do with his floor. He says his floor is always, it's never as clean as it'd like to be. He's always out there cleaning it. He wanted to know, would it be all right to put shavings down, wood shavings? And I said, now understand, there are a lot of people that use wood shavings. I'm not a fan of that. I think they blow around too much. They're all over the place, and I think you get a fair amount of dust in the bird's eyes. But I do know people do use them. But I think most of the people that use shavings are people of breeds that don't fly much, and that would be your fantail, or maybe runts, big breeds that spend a lot of time, the powders that spend a lot of time on the floor. I think those would be better suited to shavings. The second choice, and he asked me about it, was sand. And I said sand is much better than shavings. It's more absorbent. It'll absorb the droppings and keep them where they're at. Easy if you go in there with a pitchfork or something, pick up the droppings and then rake the sand. So sand is certainly a lot better than shavings. My lofts, some of you know, I have 5 lofts. It's 13 different sections, and I keep a lot of birds. And being of the age I'm at, I'm to the point where I don't want to be down on my hands and knees scraping floors. I don't want shaving. So what I've done in all of my loft is to use a product called floor covering. It's made in Belgium. It's basically a clay product ground up in small pieces, and it has something in it to help reduce the possibility of coccidiosis. It's a good product, does the job. In fact, this morning, or yesterday, Rhonda cleaned the loft right down to the wood, cleaned all the perches, and made it ready for me to put the floor covering down. 8 by 8 loft, 3 bags, covered at about 2 inches of floor covering, and it looks great. The key is, with so many pigeons, and with only me being involved in the pigeons, I just can't clean my lofts as often as they should be. So I leave that floor covering down. You may wonder about this, but I leave it down for 6 months. I don't have to clean my loft for 6 months. I put all of my perches on one wall. The droppings fall to the floor. And when I go in with my pitchfork, and you can buy them from us or you can go to Tractor Supply or somewhere, but you want the tines they're called, they're fairly close to catch everything. So I go in with my pitchfork. In fact, with me, because my loft is only 8 foot, my section is only 8 feet wide, I cut the handle off to make it short enough for me to put 2 hands on it and to pick up the droppings, but not so long that I'm always bumping the wall or getting caught in the screen. So that's what I use. I only have to clean my lofts. I rotate them. I only have to clean each section every 6 months. It's a blessing to me because I just can't clean 13 sections every week or every 2 weeks. Just too much work. And being the stuff is so dry, it absorbs so much of the moisture from the droppings and the urine that it stays smelling pretty darn good for a long period of time, and it's so much easier to clean. Any questions on it? I'm going to give you my phone number. You may want to get a pencil or something, or a pen, and write my phone number down. I'm going to give you my home phone, and you have to understand that giving you my home phone, I ask you, remember I'm in the Eastern time zone, so it's 3:30 here. It might be 1:30 where you are, or 12:30 where you are, and keep that in mind, because if you're calling me at 5 o'clock your time, that's 8 o'clock my time. If you call me at 6, that's 9 o'clock. And in most cases, 5 o'clock Eastern time, I won't answer the phone after that. I'll call you the next day. I've got calls up until midnight, so I don't even have a phone in my bedroom anymore because I can hear it and it wakes me up, and I'm a little cranky, and I went off on somebody one time, and I felt so bad after the next day when I got up in the morning. But geez, no matter where they were, it was 7 o'clock at night 9 o'clock at night when they were calling me, and midnight at my house. And my wife didn't appreciate it. Got another call, email, whichever it was, about later. The man said he had a bird with a bump. In fact, he had 3 of them. A bump in his throat, not in his throat, in his tongue area, the lower beak. And he wanted to know if I knew what it was. And I was completely puzzled. I said, a bump in the mouth, I have no idea. He said, it's like a bluish color. And I said, it's a new one on me. I have no idea. And I said, can you send me a picture? He couldn't do that. So I got to talking to him, and you'll see I'll ask a lot of questions and sometimes I interrupt you, and I apologize for that. But being a little bit older, I want to get it out of my mouth before I forget what I was going to say. So I asked him some questions, and he says, another thing. He says the eye sear, and that's the skin around the eye. He says it looks a little irritated, and he says it looks like there's a pimple or something there. He says, I don't know what that is. And of course, that was the key. He told me what the problem was right there. And most of you know, if there's a little pimple in the mouth, on the eyelid, on the eye sear, or on the feet, that's all bare skin. That pigeon he had 2 others, 3 of them. Those pigeons were bitten by a mosquito that carried the pox virus. And the pox virus looks like a little BB, then it grows into a little ball, a little bit bigger than a baseball, a little smaller than a ping pong ball, certainly, a little bigger than a BB. And it's not a killer. We used to have a vaccine against it, but there are none made in the United States right now. So the only vaccines that can be bought come from overseas, and I'm not terribly comfortable with those because all vaccines, when they're shipped, have to be shipped in ice. And when you get into the weather we've been having here in Pennsylvania, we're talking 85, 90, 95 degrees. No way in the heck can an ice pack keep that cold for 2 or 3 days that it would take to get from Europe to here. So we don't sell the pox. We used to, the pox vaccine. And we do sell to the PMV and the paratyphoid. But going back to the pox, the good news on that, it's not a killer. It's ugly as sin, especially the process is a bump, then a growth, then a wart, ugly, and then the wart dries up, falls off, and the bird will be fine. So I wish there was a cure for it. There isn't. There are products that you can buy. We sell them called Pox Dry. All that is you take a Q-tip and dab it on the little bump, and it'll help it dry up a little bit quicker, but it's certainly not a cure. So if you have questions about a pox or Pox Dry, email us, or if you want to order it, just call Foys. I wanted to also mention on the vaccines, while it's on my mind, last week we made the decision to no longer send out PMV and paratyphoid vaccines by second day air. Because with it being 90 degrees, we'll probably change that when we get into colder weather, but it might be 75 here and you're in Arizona and it's 95 or 100 there. So we're no longer going to send our vaccines 2-day air. We're going to send them overnight. It's more expensive, but rather than getting a vaccine that may no longer be good because it got too hot, it'll destroy it, then we're just not going to do it anymore. If you have a question, you can call us about it, or if you want to order the vaccines, be aware that we only ship it, and we do ship it with a number of ice packs, but still, it has to go out overnight. So if you call us on a Thursday or Friday, we're going to hold that order in most cases until the following Monday. We just want to be sure you get it and it's still cold. My home phone number, did I give that out? I talked about it. Didn't give it, did I? 724-359-5355. That's my home. If you call me and I'm not there, I might be out watering the garden, might be out cleaning the coops, or at least picking up my floor covering, or just out on the back porch drinking a cold beer. I like England. 5 minutes left to bidding on the two pair that come down from Belgian birds, and we have a bid of $320 on the pair number 2. We have a bid of $230. But one just came in. I've got a bid of $250 for that number 1 pair. $250. So if you're the gentleman that bid the $230, you're going to have to go more than that. It's going to have to be $250. So, and you've got about 5 more minutes, right? 5 or 6 more minutes. You don't have much time, so you want to get that Facebook message into us to buy the pair. You need to go $250 for pair 1, and you need to go, and there's a lot of Jansen, I forgot to tell you that, an awful lot of Jansen in these two, because we get a lot of questions about Jansen. So it's $250 or it's $300 even. Don't mind me, getting old. But I was looking at one of these pair. Listen to this. This is the bird that is number 62. It's a blue bar hen. Way back to grandfathers. Hubble. I can't pronounce it. H-U-J-B-R-E. Hubry. But Jansen, Declack, which is a super crack, Jansen, and the last one is down from King's Crown, which doesn't have it, but that's the bird that won $29,000. It's only got a few more minutes. No, now I appreciate having Gina with me. Geez, I'm running out of steam. It's hard to talk for an hour nonstop. That's why I wish you'd send in a question. But if you don't, I was going to mention we're up to 12,000 views on this program. So it's growing, and it's growing because people like you. Right now, the show is every other week. So today being the 20th, the show will be 2 weeks from today. Runs from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. If you want to send in your questions, you do it through Facebook. Or if you don't want to do that, you can email me questions or call, but I'd rather you do it through Facebook, and I'll use your question. I was going to talk about my utility kings. I better not do it. I don't have a lot of time because we'll have to switch the birds around. But I got 4 pair of white utility kings, and when the young man sent them to me to offer them for sale, as you know, utility kings are birds that are raised for meat. The parents lay the egg, the young grow to about 20, 22, 23 days. Just before weaning, they take them from the nest and they butcher them, and it's called squabs. You've maybe heard of squabs under glass. And I've had questions about them, but the gentleman had offered them to me for sale. I thought he wanted $100 a pair, $100 a bird. He didn't. So that was misinformation. He wants to sell them for $60 a bird. $60. So if you want a nice pair, or 2 or 3 or 4 pair of utility kings, solid white, we have them in my lofts, and I'll do my best to bring them to you next week. But some of the information I found very interesting. This booklet is from Foys in Clinton. It's called Money in Squabs. And of course, Foys was in Clinton, Iowa for many, many years. And he wrote this book, Mr. Frank Foy. But here's some information, and it's kind of general too, because all pigeons would do the same thing. But he says, if you took 5 pair of average breeding quality, he says 5 pair, 10 birds, 5 pair, the average laid eggs per year per pair is 18. So you'd get 90 eggs per year from 5 pair. Squabs raised by 5 pairs in a year, that's from egg to butchering, 53. Pounds of grain consumed to produce 1 pound of squab. So if you want 1 pound squab, you've got to feed them a little over 7 pounds of feed. So you can figure out cost. If you need this information, you can always call me and I can give it to you. I'm not going to go over the cost because this book was written in the 30s, and I won't go over it all, but back then the cost per pound was 16 cents. I don't think it's that anymore. If you wanted to buy grit, it says that on average it's going to cost you about $15, but that's way back when. Average profit back in the 1930s, now you'd have to extrapolate that to figure out what it is in 2018, but they were making big money back in the 30s when they raised the 5 pair. Their net profit after everything was paid was a whopping $3.02. So, but you have to extrapolate that, and if you, like the gentleman that supplied these birds to me has 200 pair, I think, so if he multiplied it out, he's making good money right now. So that's a little bit of information. Do you have anything to say, Veronica? Got 15 more minutes. We're going to close the bidding, aren't we? Another minute or so? Yeah. Okay. As most of you know, I'm writing a book. I try to work on it when I can. Last week I was on vacation. That first one is $250, not $230. $250, and the other one is $300. So we are going to close the bidding. The first bid for pair number 1, the birds went for $250. Pair number 2, the birds went for $300 even. We'll urge you to contact us as soon as possible to get your information. Now remember, you have to pay shipping on it, and you ask for me. My name's Jerry, and I'll give you a cost, and I'm going to reduce the shipping for you a little bit. All of the money that we're raising from these auctions, so today we raised $550, will go to a charity called the National Pigeon Association Legacy Fund Trust. Your $250 and your $300 will never ever be spent. It will be pooled with all the other investments we've brought in over the last number of years and invested in conservative funds. And over the years, as we raise money, we have the investment money ready, and what we'll do, we are accepting it now. If there's a pigeon product, it doesn't have to be necessarily the NPA. If it's a pigeon project that benefits kids, adults, seniors, clubs, associations, just anything that will benefit our great hobby, the request is made on a form. You have to contact me, and I'll give you the general information. It has to go to the NPA, but just as easy to keep in mind that I am the chairman of the National Pigeon Association Trust. We're approaching $70,000 in investments, and we hope these auctions continue. We have other ways. We do auctions at shows, and a lot of National Pigeon Association members have supported us with multiple donations that has got us up to around $70,000. So what was the gentleman's name on the second bid? Did you have it up there, Veronica? The 300 bid, I can give you the name. His first name is Costa, C-O-S-T-A. I'm not going to give you his last name. He may not want that put out. So Costa, $300, check, or please contact us if you can use your credit card too. The first pair for $250, and they're just gorgeous pigeons. I'm looking at them now. It's a mysterious bidder. I know who it is. He asked me not to give his names out. He said I'll just be bugged by some of the local people wanting to buy young ones from them, and I'm going to raise them for myself. These are, both pair are 500 mile birds. I'm watching now the pair that's on my right, and they're certainly a mated pair. They're cooing and kissing, and you know what pigeons do. Well, that's certainly a mated pair. Now, what I'm going to do, as I told you, I'm writing a book, and the book itself is going to be information mostly on pigeon health and tips, little things that you might not be aware of that will be included in here. Just general information I pick up from a lot of different people. I'll give you an idea. A section of it is broke down: feet, wings, beak, ear, chest, intestinal. I broke it all down, so I'm going to give you, for instance, some of the information. I wanted to mention this because I got an email, and I know I jump around a lot. Got an email, a guy wanted to know, he's giving the Spiridox. Spiridox is spiromycin and doxycycline. He wanted to know, should I remove the grit? The answer is yes, you should. Just keep this in mind. If the drug you're using, the antibiotic, ends in cycline, that's chlorotetracycline, Aureomycin is a cycline, tetracycline. If it ends in CY, CLINE, remove the grit. You don't want to give them grit and have a cycline product at the same time. Won't kill them, but they seem to counteract each other. So take the grit away whenever you are using a product. Cut it out, girls and boys over there. They're smooching. If you didn't see the show at the beginning, we had an auction and we showed a pair of our birds, really nice pigeons. But cycline, take the grit away. All right, we do have a question. Marino is his name, M-O-R-E-N-O. Hello, Jerry, great information. I have a question. What is the dose for the injectable Tylen 50 per pigeon? There's Tylen 200 and there's Tylen 50. Tylen 50, a full cc on your syringe it's marked in cc's. One full cc, and once, one day. Rarely will you need it a second day, but it's one full cc, and you'll see direct results within 24 hours. Tylen 50 is 25% the strength, 1/4 the strength. So what do? You're gonna, if I told you 1 cc for the 200, wait a minute, I did that math wrong, didn't I? 50 cc's, yeah, 4 times 50 is 2. Yeah, I did it right. I did it right. So it would be 1/4 cc per bird, 1/4 cc times 4. So you've got, don't mind me. Jerry's getting tired. Tylen 100, it's 1 cc. Tylen 50, it's 1/4 cc. Any questions on that? I'm thinking about it now. I said it wrong. Come on, Veronica. She could have got my catalog out and read it. If it's 1 cc, 1 cc is 1/4 cc. I said it absolutely wrong because it's so strong. Tylen 200, 1/4 cc. Tylen 50, 1 full cc. I apologize. I'm not a professional. I'm not a veterinarian. I'll do my best. But so that does answer his question. Tylen 200 is 1/4 cc. Tylen 50 is Jerry. Don't laugh at me, Veronica. I'm struggling. Tylen 100, 1/4 cc. Tylen 50, a full cc. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. All right, we wanted a couple of things you may want to know. Sometimes I get a question about combining drugs. Here are just 3 drugs that if you want, 3 different examples. Selmet and penicillin. You can mix the 2 at the same time, at the same strength. Don't break them down. Spectromycin and penicillin can be mixed at the same time at equal strength. Aureomycin and Selmet should never be combined. So Selmet and penicillin, and some of you still have penicillin, been taken off the market, but I know a lot of people still have it. That can be mixed with penicillin. Selmet, like I say, been off the market. Spectromycin still around. Penicillin, they can be mixed. Now, here's, for instance, wings. And I've got about 5 more minutes. If you have a question, we can squeeze you in. If you're reading the book, I'm hoping to have it done in a couple of years. My last one took me 5 years. This one won't be as big, but I'm thinking another 2 years. If you see a bird that's dragging both wings on the floor, just crawling, it's using its wings for motion, paratyphoid. It's unable to use its legs because the paratyphoid, some people call it salmonella, has gone into the joints, making it very, very painful to walk. So it's trying to pull itself with its wings. Some people, if it's a young bird, they call it young bird disease. So the treatment certainly is going to be YBD for the young bird disease. Remember, paratyphoid is a bacterial infection. It can be prevented, but the good thing is it can also be treated. What are you going to use? For the young ones, it's going to be YBD. It's called young bird cure, young bird disease cure. The other one is furaltidone. We have it in powder and capsules, and it's for the drinking water. Also, it's for all of your birds. You can put it in the water and treat everything. And the capsules are for individual treatment. Seems to be some confusion as to the correct treatment. 5 days of furaltidone or young bird disease. Then you give it a break and put probiotics in the water for 2 days. And then you've got 5 more days of the medicine and 2 more days of the probiotic. After that, give it about 10 days to 2 weeks, vaccinate. And if you don't vaccinate to prevent it, it'll come back on you again next year. The cure is not permanent. You'll get it again next year. So my suggestion is use the medicine 10 days to 2 weeks later. You want to vaccinate. Now, if your birds have never been vaccinated with a paratyphoid vaccine, they need to be vaccinated twice. The first time now. So you vaccinate them, 10 days later you give them a second one, which is called the booster. If you don't do the booster, you wasted your money. You've got to do 2. the first time. Not cheap. And maybe you don't want to do all your birds, maybe just your breeders, however you want to do it. But you've got to vaccinate 10 days after the treatment, or and if you don't do it twice, you'll get it back. Next year, that's why you have to keep a record, those same birds only need to be vaccinated once. That's next year. And then everything that you brought in since then, or the breeders, then starting all over again, it takes 2. Now, pinholes in the wing feathers. Seen that? Most of us have seen it. It's caused by a parasite. You probably figure that out. The solution, this is an old-time one, been around for a long time, and I use it. There's a product called permectin. It's a liquid, 1 ounce per gallon. When I do it, I make 3 ounces, 3 gallons or 3 ounces. I do it in a 5-gallon bucket, and I'm using warm or water that is room temperature, not cold, not hot. And I mix it up. It'll look like milk, makes it water white. I dip the bird up to its beak, and while it's in there, I open its wings. You can do it. I do it with 2 hands. Open its wings so it gets wet underneath. Then I spread its tail so that everything is soaking wet. The stuff soaks into the feathers very quickly. So what you want to do is dip them and then put them in a basket and let them dry out. When they dry out, all the bugs are gone. The problem is gone. Now that'll last you 30 to 45 days. I caution you, don't do it on an extremely hot day. There's always a possibility because of and when I say hot, we're talking 90 degrees, 85, 90 degrees. Don't do it. It could have adverse effect on the pigeon's health. So do it on a day that, let's say 75 or 80 as a rule of thumb. If you get above that, you may want to wait to a little bit cooler day. So that's going to be in it. A boil on the wing butt. When we say wing butt, it's like the shoulder of a wing. This would be the end of the wing. Here's the shoulder, that's the butt. And you see a boil on it, a growth. Well, that is paratyphoid. Same thing. There are many symptoms to paratyphoid. That's why it's so hard to diagnose. The only true way to diagnose it is with a necropsy or an autopsy. We can do that for you, but it gets on the expensive side. But when there's a boil, when I was a kid, when I'm talking 50, 60 years ago, and we had that boil, we didn't know what it was. We called it a cyst or a boil. We didn't know it was paratyphoid. Back then, we didn't know what paratyphoid was. So the old-time recipe to take care of that cyst or growth, which we call a boil now, get yourself some strong thread. And what we would do is wrap the thread around the bottom of the boil, around the bottom where it meets the body or meets the elbow, and wind it kind of tight. And just leave it. So you got to tape it so it doesn't come unraveled. And in a period of time, I can't remember whether it was 1 week or 2 weeks, that boil will fall off naturally, and when it falls off, it's already healing underneath. The wing is already healing. So if you have that problem, that's one thing you can do. Other things are being paratyphoid. Any of the drugs that we've talked about, furaltidone, young bird disease, and or other products that you can use for paratyphoid. But like I said, when I was a kid, I didn't even know about that. So this is an example of what's in our book. I guess we got another minute or so. Mm-hmm. I can go over, can I? All right, why am I going over 2 or 3 minutes? Because we started 5 minutes late. We're going to go to 5 after 4. In this book, we're going to talk about the crop. The crop is the chest. The crop is not completely empty. In other words, you fed your birds. Oh, UPS is stopping at the warehouse to pick up our orders today. You've got a bird that you fed it. The next morning, you see it, and it's still got crop food in its crop. So it's not emptying for some reason. That's not going through its system. There's a couple of possibilities. One is fairly common. It's called candida. Another one is cholesterol. Hello. You have to go there, young man. Oh boy. My UPS driver. You want any questions? Okay. Like I say, we're not professionals. UPS is picking up. So when you get into the crop, it's not completely empty. We already mentioned that. A couple of different things. The one that's recommended the most is something called Muscle and Wing. Muscle, Wing. And it's a powder you mix over the feed. You might want to moisten the feed with water or light oil, or we sell 2 or 3 different oils that are made for that. And you moisten it with just a little bit. You sprinkle this product on as directed, and when they eat, they're taking in the Muscle and Wing. It takes about 7 days. The directions are on the container. Let's talk about something else in upper head. When you get a bird, you walk into your loft and you say, "Oh my goodness, what the heck happened to that bird? It's bleeding profusely, or did bleed on top of its skull." In fact, some cases, and I've seen it and I've had it, where you can actually see the bone, the skull. All the skin has been taken off. And you say, "What the heck happened here?" Pretty simple. You've got an aggressive cockbird, a male, who got that young bird, mostly a young bird, sometimes a hen, but almost always a cockbird, a young bird. It's cornered, and that bully of a male cockbird just picked everything off the top of his head. Don't destroy the bird. It can be a good breeder, it can be a good flyer. It will come back. It's amazing the way they are able to come back from something like that. You might want to use something like, it just came, Neosporin, but there's no medicine that's going to help that. I see Cam's calling, or send one in, I'll answer that. But getting back to the bloody area, bloody head, it's going to happen. What I learned to do was, on my floors, you build a shelf, piece of wood, maybe a 6-inch board, piece of pine, right along the bottom of the floor, about that high up, 4 inches. And what you can call that a hideaway or hidey hole. What it is, it's when that baby gets stuck and that rooster or cockbird is chasing it all over the place, it will run under that hidey hole, and it's too low for the big cockbird to get under there to attack it, and that may just save that baby from a lot of problems. So that's one of it. Or sometimes it's just a real small baby that just fell out of the nest, and that's the ones that really get beat up. If you see it, put it back in the nest with the parents and with its brother or sister. Cam, and I know Cam, great guy, super NPA member, helps us out a lot. Cam is from Hawaii. Let's see, virulent Newcastle disease is on the West Coast. What do you recommend? Number one, it's not Newcastle, Cam. Newcastle is what chickens get. Now, when you're talking about that, it's PMV, perimyxovirus, which is the pigeon form of Newcastle. In fact, there are a lot of people who use something called Lesota in the drinking water. It's a little vial, you pour it in the water, and that's a chicken product for Newcastle. And some people use it and feel comfortable using it. The problem with the Lesota is it only lasts for about 4 to 6 weeks, and you've got to do it every 4 to 6 weeks forever. But it's real cheap, so it may be a temporary solution until you make up your mind or can afford the vaccine, the PMV vaccine, which is going to cost you $130 or so. So Lesota is a stopgap measure. Nobody wants to treat them forever. The real way to go is the PMV vaccine, which I talked about at the beginning of the show. If they haven't ever been vaccinated before, it's 2 shots. One, 10 days later, the second shot, and then that same bird gets a shot based on the directions. There is no treatment, being a virus. I wish I could help you more, but I will tell you one thing. We had and I've said this before, we had a virus on the West Coast, started on the West Coast, spread all over the United States, and then traveled overseas. And it just, if you've got the disease, it kills pretty darn quickly. And Cam, if you want to email me about it with more information, I'd be glad to discuss it, and maybe we can discuss it on the show in a couple of weeks. But PMV is a quick killer. There's a product at Mike Owens, who owns Boxes for Birds, great company. If you want shipping boxes, he sells them. But he tried a product called NutriDrops. And he said it was unbelievable. In fact, he called and ordered 2 cases of it because he had lost 1,000 birds. That's how many birds. He had a lot of pigeons, a lot of valuable pigeons. He started using Nutri-Drops. It's a natural product. It's not an antibiotic. There is no cure for virus, but how it worked, it stumped him and it stumped me. But he said once he started to use it, the dying stopped almost immediately. So if you want to try it, it's not terribly expensive. Might be something you want to try. But keep in mind, if it's a virus, if it's PMV, you've got to vaccinate at some point or it will come back. I guess that wraps it up. Are we done with 5 minutes or so? I thank you for watching. My name is Jerry Gagne. I own Foys Home Improvement. We're so thankful that you folks bought those pigeons that we have on auction. Next week, I'm hoping to have a pair of English carriers from John Hepner. He said he'd send them this week, so I'll get them in. And if you know, John Hepner has some of the best English carriers in the world. I also spoke to the president of the National Pigeon Association, John DiCarlo, and because it benefits the National Pigeon Association, what he's going to do is he's going to send me a pair of birds. So if this continues, we'll have great quality pigeons. If you'd like to donate a pigeon or a pair of pigeons to the National Pigeon Association Legacy Fund Trust, call me at home, 724-359-5355. And whatever money we receive, like the gentleman who bought the pair for $300, he will be recognized now in the NPA Quarterly Magazine twice a year for the rest of his life. At $300, he becomes a gold band member, and not only does he get the birds, he gets the benefit of being a gold band member of the Legacy Fund Trust. He'll never, ever be forgotten. It goes on forever as long as there's a National Pigeon Association, and he'll be recognized as a supporter, as will the gentleman that donated the birds, as will John Hepner, as will John DiCarlo, and anybody else who donates birds. Gentleman, as you know, donated some, passed away, but his friend donated some Indian fantails, same way. I know I'm going on, but I'm passionate about this Legacy Fund Trust. We all want to leave a legacy. We all want to be remembered. We have a great hobby, and some of you maybe are in my shoes where I've had pigeons for 67 years. I only have one relative, and it's a niece from one of my brother's daughter, who is the only one that's interested in pigeons. I have had 8 children. Not a one of them has any interest in pigeons. 27 grandchildren, none for sure. 14 great-grandchildren, don't know yet. So I'm going to leave my legacy. I've donated an amount of money to the NPA Trust, and I continue to do that, and I will. And I'll never be forgotten. My goal is to get to the highest level, which is 10,000. I'm now what's called a, not a ruby, I'm a diamond, if I remember right. It's 5,000. But I haven't given 5,000 at one time. I just continually send small amounts, 100 or 200 at a time, and just continues to grow and grow and grow. And I've been giving for a long time. So my phone number, 724-359-5355. If you've got a question about pigeons, call me. If you want information on the NPA Legacy Fund Trust. This has been work for me today. Gina, I missed you. Don't do this to me again. And Gramas, you better come back and do it too. Thank you very much. Been a pleasure.